Hello, my name is Mousa Mohammadian. I'm from Iran. I'm an assistant professor of philosophy at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. And I'm very happy to be a visiting fellow at the Center for Philosophy of Science for the spring semester of 2024. So I specialize in general philosophy of science, in history of philosophy of science, metaphysics, and also Islamic philosophy, especially classic Islamic philosophy. I'm basically, most of my time spent on two projects now. So one project is about theoretical virtues in science and metaphysics. By theoretical virtues, I mean those properties or characteristics of scientific theories that are usually considered to be desirable, like consistency, coherence, unification, and so on and so forth. So I study how they actually work in theory choice in science and whether they can be applied in theory choice in metaphysics. That's an old project that is towards its end. And the project that I'm working on at the center is a historical project, which is about the interaction, reception, or even non-reception of Charles Sanders Peirce's philosophy of science by early logical empiricists, mostly in the 30s and 40s. So when you study early logical empiricist movement in the United States, you see that Peirce was received quite warmly with some major advocates and representatives of logical empiricism early times in 20s, 30s, and 40s. For instance, Charles Morris, who ended up to be one of the editors of the International Encyclopedia for the Unified Science, Ernst Nagel, one of his students, Justus Buckler, and also Quine, Philip Frank, they all talk about Peirce in a kind of receiving manner. But as historians of philosophy of science know, after a while, Peirce kind of fades away and disappears. So today, Peirce is not considered as a canonical figure in history of philosophy of science, unlike figures like Pierre Duhem, Poincaré, members of the Vienna Circle. So I want to see what happened. I want to see how Peirce was received by these early representatives of the logical empiricist movement, how they thought about Peirce as a philosopher of science, and why Peirce gradually disappeared. That is the phase of the project that I'm working on now. Later on, I also would like to study that, what we have missed because we didn't take Peirce as seriously as we should have, as I believe. What, insights Peirce's philosophy of science can offer for today's problem in philosophy of science. So I don't think philosophers of science need any reason to be at the center for philosophy of science. But in particular, regarding my project, there are some specific advantages. First, the archive of scientific philosophy is here. So not only I focus a lot of my time at the works that was published in the early years of logical empiricism, but in the archive of scientific philosophy, there are a lot of correspondence, non-published works, correspondence between philosophers, and things like that that can be very helpful in order to understand how these figures actually thought. For instance, recently I was looking at the archive correspondence of Ernst Nagel, and I realized that as early as 1939, you can see that Peirce's philosophy is becoming marginalized. And the reason I'm saying that, because at the time, Justus Buckler actually was working on a collection of papers about Peirce. And then in his correspondence with Nagel, he talks about how much people are not interested in actually writing on Peirce, and how many of the people that he reached out to and asked them to write something about Peirce and his philosophy, or something even about their own works that they think are kind of related to the Peirce philosophy. He was just telling Nagel that most people didn't answer, and those who actually answered were basically not very interested in participating in that collected works. These are the kind of insights that you can get through this correspondence, and the archive here, of course, is a must. It would be very helpful for anyone who is interested in the history of that period.